Hi, welcome to another Math with Townsend video. For grade 10 students, we're looking at the quadratic relations unit. Let's do one specific question. Here it is. It says a quadratic relation has a vertex at the point -5, -3, and it passes through the point 1, 9. Find the equation in both vertex form and standard form. So of course, when we're finding the equation of a quadratic relation, we're always going to be starting by finding the vertex form equation, and then we can algebraically translate that into standard form. So remember, the vertex form looks like this. Y equals a, x minus h squared plus k. And it's called vertex form because if I know where the vertex is, I know what to write for h and k. So because I have a vertex at -5, -3, I can sub those in. And notice, just, to make this video even more helpful, I'm actually subbing it in and doing a slightly slower process here. So the formula says to take x, subtract h, and h is -3. So x minus -h is going to become x plus h. So we're pretty used to that at this point, that the vertex, if I start with vertex form, the vertex is not +5, even though I see +5. The vertex is actually the number that makes the bracket 0 if I let x be that number. So it's always the opposite sign to what I see. But the k value is just -3. So certainly by all means, you don't need to write, you don't need to write this step if you're comfortable just going directly here, because we know that the sign of the x coordinate of the vertex seems to look different when I write it in the equation. Anyway, that's the first step, is putting the vertex values in. And then how do I solve for a? Well, the way we solve for a, especially because we don't have a diagram or a graph, is we have to take another known point. So I know that there's a point at 1, 9, and that is a point on this parabola or on this quadratic. And that means I can use the x and y values from that point. I can sub them into this equation for x and y, and that will allow me to solve for a. So that's how we get that information. So again, x is 1 and 9, and y is 9. So y is 9, x is 1. So I'm writing the same equation, except for now I have a value for x and y. And that leaves me with just an equation where the only variable is a, so I just need to now do that math and solve for a. So here I'm multiplying a by whatever this is, so I can calculate that. And here, this -3, it's not part of the a term, so it's going to have to get moved over. So I'll do that in 2 steps in case you need that. So I have 1 plus 5 in a bracket. Well, 1 plus 5 is 6, and then that bracket is squared, so 6 squared is 36. So now I can see that what I have is a times 36 minus 3. Well, I want to get rid of -3, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So that gives me 12, equals a times 36. And then I have just to isolate a. So if I'm multiplying by 36, I want to divide by 36. So on both sides, I divide by 36. So I want, as much as possible, you to work in fractions. So I reduce 12 over 36 to 1 over 3. That's my a value. So I can now write the equation in vertex form. So y equals, so the a value we just calculated was 1/3. And then we had x plus 5 squared minus 3. Now I need to translate this or convert this into standard form. So that means I'm just doing the algebra of Bedmes here. So I'm going to follow the algebra of Bedmes. I have a bracket But I can't do x plus 5 because x is just a variable I need. So my next step is to do the exponent. And the exponent is on that bracket. So I'm going to do that binomial squared process. So when we square a binomial, we're going to square the first, double the product. The product is 5x. If I double that, I get 10x. And then we're going to square the last. 5 squared is 25. So I've squared that binomial. Now I have to multiply by 1/3 and subtract 3. So I multiply before I subtract. So I'm going to multiply 1/3 in. And I know it's a fraction, but that's okay. We can handle fractions. Because it's not like not much is going to happen other than just multiply a third. 1/3 times x squared is just 1/3 of x squared. 1/3 times 10x is positive 10 thirds of x. So 10 times 1, and then the divide by 3 is just divide by 3. Plus 25 times 1/3 is 25 times 1 over 3. And then that minus 3 wasn't in the bracket, so I didn't multiply. Now, what do I have left? I've got x squared, I've got x, and then I've got these two things which are both not variable terms. They're called constant terms, so I need to collect like terms. And because fractions are involved, and I always encourage you to work in fractions, how do I add or subtract if fractions are involved? I need a common denominator. So right now, I have a denominator of 3 and a denominator of 1. So I'm going to make my second fraction have a denominator of 3. So it would be 9 over 3. And now I can collect like terms right here. So I get y equals 1/3 x squared plus 10 over 3x. And then 25, positive 25 minus 9 is positive 16 over 3. None of my fractions reduce, so that is my final answer for the standard form equation of that parabola. Okay, hope that helped. Keep practicing.